The last thing I remember before the hospital was my mother-in-law, smiling at me across the plane, sliding a second helping of tiramisu onto my plate like it was love. Then nothing. I woke up under fluorescent lights with an IV taped to my arm and a heart monitor ticking beside my valve. The door was open a few inches, and through that gap I heard Gretchen whisper, "Are you sure she took it?" Then my sister-in-law, Paige, laughed. Soft, easy, relax. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours. My blood turned to ice water. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I reached for my phone on the chair beside the bed, battery at 34%, opened my messages, and typed one line to my attorney. Execute the plan now. 48 hours earlier, I had signed a document none of them knew existed, and the woman who helped me draft it was already getting in her car. But to understand how I ended up in that bed, you have to go back to the dinner table. Because what happened there started long before the wine was ever poured. My name is Vivian Rowan. I'm 34 years old, and I built everything I have with my own 2 hands. I grew up in Harnett County, North Carolina, in a double-wide my mother rented from a soybean farmer. She worked nights at a gas station and weekends at a church thrift shop. I never went hungry, but I learned young that nothing comes free, and nothing stays unless you hold on to it with both hands. I earned a scholarship to nursing school, graduated top of my class, and worked 4 years in a Charlotte ER. Then I went back, got my master's, and became a family nurse practitioner, licensed to diagnose and build treatment plans on my own. But every week, I watched patients get discharged to homes where nobody was waiting. Elderly men sent back to empty apartments. Women recovering from surgery with no one to check if they were eating. The hospital treated the crisis. Nobody treated the aftermath. So I started Rowan Home Health out of my kitchen. 1 laptop, 1 filing cabinet, a phone that never stopped ringing. Within 5 years, I had 23 employees covering 6 rural counties. I still drove out myself every Saturday morning because Mrs. Delano had no children, and Mr. Stanchfield couldn't get his compression stockings on alone. That agency was mine. Every contract, every hire, every late night reconciling payroll, mine. I was good at taking care of people. I was terrible at noticing when someone was circling me. I met Tyler Prescott at a fundraiser. Tall, quiet, the kind of man who listened like you were the only person in the room. When he brought me to meet his family, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. The Prescott house sat on 3 acres behind a gate. Gretchen met me at the door, held my face in both hands, and said, "You are exactly what this family needed." Paige, his sister, smiled and asked all the right questions. But her eyes measured me, the way you measure a room you're deciding whether to rent. I noticed. I filed it away. But I had no idea how bad it was about to get. 6 months after the wedding, Gretchen invited me to lunch. Just the 2 of us. She ordered for both of us, set her fork down, folded her hands, and said she'd been thinking. "Vivian, the family has a trust. It handles the real estate, the investments. We think it would be smart to fold your business into the trust. For efficiency, for protection." She said it the way she said everything, like she was handing me a gift. I took a sip of water. "I appreciate that, Gretchen. But Rowan Home Health is my company. I built it before I married Tyler. I'd rather keep it separate." Her smile held. It just didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, dear. Just something to think about." That night, Tyler brought it up while we washed dishes. "Mom was only trying to help. Don't make it weird." "I'm not making it weird," I said. I said no. He went quiet, and that was the first time I felt it. The invisible cord between Tyler and his mother that tightened every time I pushed back on money. Thin, almost invisible, but when I tugged, he always leaned toward her. I let it go that night. I shouldn't have. The first transfer was $12,000. I found it reconciling our joint account, wired to an account number I'd never seen. I showed Tyler the statement. "Mom needed it for a closing," he said, barely looking. "Short term. Don't make this a thing. That's our emergency fund, Tyler. It's temporary." I set a boundary. No transfers from the joint account without both of us agreeing first. He nodded. He even said, "Fair enough." 2 weeks later, another $5,000 was gone. Same account. No discussion. So that weekend, I opened a personal account at a different bank. I rerouted my business income, moved my direct deposits, and left just enough in the joint account for the household bills. Tyler didn't notice for 3 weeks. When he finally did, he said, "Why would you do that?" "Because I work 60 hours a week for that money," I said, "and I should know where it goes." The cord pulled. I could feel it, but this time I didn't let go. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. It started with a certified letter. One of the commercial buildings Tyler co-owned with his mother had $340,000 in unpaid property taxes, 3 years overdue. When I finally pried the truth out of him, the number got worse. The whole Prescott portfolio, 6 buildings Gretchen had managed for 30 years, was bleeding. Vacancies, loans against equity, total exposure close to $900,000. The Prescott name still looked solid from the outside. Inside, it was hollow. That evening, Gretchen called, warm as ever. "Vivian, we're family. And family shares. I'm wondering, just a temporary bridge, if we could arrange a transfer from your business accounts." "No," I said. "Final." There was a pause. "Then I see. Well, we'll find another way." She said it like a promise. The next Sunday she made dinner. Roast, green beans, a mushroom risotto she swore came from her grandmother. I complimented it. She squeezed my hand across the table. That night, around midnight, I woke up violently sick. Racing heart, cold, clammy skin, the room tilting every time I stood. Urgent care called it a stomach bug. But here's the thing. Nobody else at that table got sick. Just me, the nurse in me, the one who'd spent 4 years watching symptoms that didn't match the story. That part of me started paying attention. I went home, and I wrote it all down. The date, the food, who cooked it, who else ate, and I locked the note in my desk drawer. Then Tyler started asking questions he'd never asked in 3 years. "How does your business account work? Is it only in your name?" "Estate planning," he said. "Mom thinks we should understand each other's finances." A few days later, I was looking for a phone charger in his work bag. My fingers found a manila folder instead. Inside was a healthcare power of attorney. My name at the top. Tyler listed as my agent, with financial authority if I became incapacitated. Notarized by a name I didn't recognize. And at the bottom, my signature. Except I had never seen that document. I had never signed it. I'd signed my name 1,000 times. I knew my own handwriting, the way a carpenter knows the grain of his own wood. This was not mine. I realized then, no one was coming to save me. I had to save myself. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I photographed every page, put the folder back exactly where I found it, and zipped the bag shut. Then I started building walls he couldn't see. My friend Nora, a hospital pharmacist, met me for coffee that week with a look I knew meant bad news. "Viv, someone called the pharmacy asking for your full medication history, allergies, and any record of psychiatric treatment or cognitive impairment." She'd flagged it and reported it. "You need a lawyer, not the family's lawyer. Your own. And if you think you were poisoned, get baseline blood work now, while you're healthy. So if it happens again, there's something to compare against." The next morning, I called the state bar. I picked Rachel Keller, small firm, independent, no ties to anyone in Charlotte real estate. She listened for 45 minutes without interrupting once. Then she set her pen down. "You have a forgery, a pattern of financial violations, an unauthorized inquiry into your medical records, and a narrow window before they escalate." She wrote out the plan on a legal pad. Restructure the trust. Tyler off, Rachel on as emergency trustee. Update the business succession plan the same way. Pre-file a forgery challenge with the county clerk so that fake power of attorney could never be honored at any hospital or court. "And one more thing," she said. "A dead man's switch. You check in with me at set times. If you miss a check-in and I can't reach you, I automatically execute a package. Restraining order, police report, asset freeze, emergency divorce filing. All pre-drafted, all ready to go." I got the baseline blood work that Thursday. 4 vials. 3 days later, the results came back clean. Every marker normal. I drove the printout to Rachel myself. "If my next labs show something that isn't on this panel," I said, "then someone put it there." For the next 5 weeks, I lived the longest performance of my life. I cooked. I watched TV with Tyler on the couch. I answered Gretchen's Sunday calls with the same. "Everything's fine," I'd been saying for 3 years. Inside, I was counting days, mapping exits, running scenarios. They had no idea what was coming. The invitation came 2 days later. Gretchen, warm and bright on the phone. Vivian, I'm hosting a dinner Saturday. Your anniversary. Just the 4 of us. I'm making something special. Rachel was clear. Don't skip it. If you do, they'll just pick another date. Carry sealed water. Eat nothing you didn't bring. And text me every 2 hours. If I don't hear from you by 11, I execute. I walked into that house with my eyes open. I let them think they were winning. When Gretchen poured wine, I held up my own bottle. Early shift tomorrow. Water for me. Something flickered across her face, then vanished. Dinner was warm, candlelit, perfectly staged, like a set dressed for a play where someone was about to get hurt. Then she carried it out. Tiramisu. I made it fresh this morning, she said, setting it in front of me. I know it's your favorite. I'd mentioned liking tiramisu exactly once 2 years earlier. The fact that she'd saved that detail told me everything. The first bite was rich and sweet. The second had a bitterness underneath that didn't belong. Flat, medicinal, on the back of my tongue. I looked up. Gretchen wasn't watching me eat. She was watching me like a clock. One bite wouldn't register on a toxicology panel. I needed enough for a lab to measure, so I ate half. I set the fork down. I smiled. Gretchen, this is wonderful. 20 minutes later, the first wave hit. Nausea, sharp and sudden. Cold palms. The edges of the room softening. Vivian, honey, you look pale, she said, before I'd even set down my coffee. She'd been waiting. I locked myself in the bathroom and texted Rachel. Symptoms starting. I had the dessert. Then I walked back out and said the words she needed me to say. Take me to Novant Presbyterian. The ER. Gretchen's reaching hand went still, but she recovered. Of course. Tyler, drive her. She wanted me at the hospital. That was always part of her plan. She just didn't know it was part of mine. At the ER, Gretchen took over, demanding a private VIP room, signing forms, stationing herself at the nurse's station like a general. She thought privacy meant control. What she'd actually done was put me inside the best evidence locker in the county. Electronic records, hallway cameras, badge access logs, a documented chain of custody for every vial of my blood. I drifted out, and around 2 a.m, I drifted back to 2 voices whispering in the hall. Are you sure she took it? Relax. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours. I called Nora. I told her to request a full toxicology panel, stat, and to tell the attending she had professional reason to suspect I know. I'd been given a substance without my knowledge. Then I texted Rachel. Execute the plan now. The reply came in 90 seconds. On my way. By 8:10 the next morning, I was sitting up when the door opened. Gretchen first, pink peonies in her hand. Paige behind her. Tyler last, eyes on the floor. Gretchen's face arranged itself into concern, until her gaze landed on the woman in the gray blazer beside my bed. Who is this? This is my attorney, I said. Rachel Keller. The peonies lowered an inch. Rachel stood, buttoned her blazer, and gestured to the couch. Mrs. Prescott, please sit down. We have several things to discuss. And that was the last time Gretchen controlled anything in that room. Rachel laid it out, unhurried. The forged power of attorney, already contested in the county system 6 weeks before this admission. A police report filed at 6:38 that morning. A restraining order granted by a judge at 7:52, barring all 3 of them from my accounts. My home, my business. Gretchen tried her oldest trick, the warm, motherly voice. Vivian, honey, you're confused. The medication, the stress. This is not something we need lawyers for. We're family. Family shares. I didn't lean forward. I didn't raise my voice. I have baseline blood work from 2 weeks ago, I said. Every marker normal. And there is a full toxicology panel running right now on the blood they drew last night. If it shows a substance that wasn't there before, and we both know it will, then this isn't a family matter. It's a criminal one. The room went completely silent. Paige broke first. Mom, she has blood work from Lake Jimtage. She turned to me, shaking. She told me it was something mild, to help you relax. I didn't know it would make you this sick. Paige? Gretchen's voice cracked like a branch. But it was already done. Gretchen drew herself up, straight spine, lifted chin, and looked at me with everything stripped away. After everything this family did for you, after we gave you the Prescott name, this is how you repay us? I looked at her from that hospital bed, IV in my arm, monitor tracking every steady beat of my heart. Family doesn't poison family, Gretchen. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. 30 years of controlling every conversation she'd ever been in, and she had no answer for that. At 10:15 that morning, the toxicology came back. A sedative compound that was never prescribed to me, consistent with oral ingestion 8 to 12 hours before the draw. Gretchen was arrested the next afternoon. Assault by administering a noxious substance, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud. Paige took a plea and testified against her own mother. Tyler cooperated, lost the marriage, and kept a felony on his record. I filed for divorce the week I was discharged. It was final in 4 months. I kept everything. The agency, my accounts, my home. None of it had ever touched the Prescott Trust. The family that offered to share everything with me lost everything they had. The house went to auction. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours, Paige had said. She was right about the timeline. She was just wrong about who. 6 months later, I signed a contract to expand into 2 new counties. I planted tomatoes. I adopted a gray cat who sleeps on my filing cabinet. And on a Sunday, I sat on my mother's porch, and she rocked in her chair and said, "You always were the quiet one. The quiet ones are the ones paying attention." I'm not harder now. I'm not angrier. I'm just clearer about what I'll protect and what I'll let go. Because the people who say, "We're family the loudest," are sometimes the ones you need the strongest walls against. I didn't get an apology. I got something better. I got out, with everything I built still in my hands.